What's up guys, I'm back with another video and I'm going to show you how to add user context menus to your Discord bot. Now if you don't know what a user context menu is, I'll go over to my Discord server, and remember guys, link in the description below if you want to join our Discord server, get help or help other people on all of my videos, tutorials, and just creating bots in general. Also, I have a bot there, EMC bot right here. That is the bot that's going to have all the features from upcoming videos already added to it if you want to test out those features. So for example, let me just type a message here so I could select myself. What a user context menu is it allows you to right click on somebody's name, and then there's this little option called apps. Apps will then have all the options of the user context menus that the bot has available, or however many bots you have in there, they will all populate here. So as you can see, I made a user context menu called user profile, and I have attached that to each user so that when you can click it and you can see the little bot icon, when you click it, it actually sends a command. And here I made it so that it's going to send the profile, show when they created their account, when they joined their account, have their user profile in the embed, and display all the roles that the user has in this server. Now I think that's a pretty cool feature to have a little user profile, show them the roles and everything. These also link to the roles, so you can see they have the color of the role. And I'm going to show you how to implement this in this video. Go over to your VS Code and we will begin. So if you've been following my recent videos, you should have all the code up to this point. If you don't, that's totally okay. Or if you were following another tutorial, maybe one of my past tutorials, that's also fine. You're just going to have to look where you have the code written. It might be in a different file than the way I have it, but just know basically every Discord bot is pretty much the same. So don't freak out if your files are not exactly like mine. It's totally fine. So just to review our index.js, what we have here is we load in the command files, and this comes from our commands folder here on the left side. And inside of our command folders, we have subfolders, and this is just for organization of our commands. So this is going to load all those commands in. It's going to set them on the client, which is the bot, and then we're going to listen on and interact with all the commands, right? Anytime someone sends a command, we want to execute that command. And then this is just logging in the bot. So we're going to do something very similar with user context menus. So we can start off by making a new folder on the right side, and we can call this context. Just like we have commands, we now have context. And I'm going to set this up for you guys so that you're going to be able to just add as many contexts as you want in here, and then you'll just deploy them just like regular commands. It's going to be super easy, super simple, and yeah, you'll never have to edit any of this deploy code again. Just like commands, you can just add a new file and it will work perfectly. Once you have that folder set up, then before we add any files, let's just go and add this context handler logics. Just like we have this command handler logic, it's going to look pretty similar, guys. Pretty similar. So I'm going to go right here, right below this interaction create. You can really do this anywhere you want. Just make sure you do it before the login, right? So here we go. We're going to write client. Start off with client.context equals new collection. So this is just going to be basically making a new array. So if you can see client.context new collection, you might recognize this as we have the same thing up here, client.commands new collection. We're just creating context equals new collection. All right. Then we're going to say const. Then we're going to say const context path, context path equals path.join. And then again, this is just like the commands. You're just going to do directory name, and then we're going to say the name of the folder. So whatever you call this folder right here has to go here. I'm going to say context. Then what we're going to say is const context files equals fs.readDirectory sync. So read dir sync. Pass in the context path that you just got from here. Then we're going to filter these files. And why are we going to filter these files? Because we only want, yes, JS files. So we're just going to check and only take the files that end in .js. And this is an arrow function, guys. So .filter arrow function for every file in this path. We're going to only want to take the files that end with .js. So guys, remember, it's very important on this part to be very cautious with your casing, your spelling. Everything has to be perfect, because otherwise the computer has no idea what you're doing. Then we're going to do a simple for loop here. So we're going to say for const file of context files. So again, that's this variable, the files that we just filtered out. So we're going to loop through this, and for each file we're going to say const file path equals path.join context paths, not files, path, context path, and then file. Then we will say const context equals require file path, right? So we're just basically importing these individual files that are in this folder. Similar to how at the top of the page we say require this, require that, require this package, require this file. It's the same exact thing. We're requiring this file, so we're importing everything because we're going to call something. We're going to execute that command, hopefully. Next, we will say if data. So then we're just going to do a validation check to see if it's in the correct format. So if data in context, and, so double and, execute is in context, and don't mistype anything. If they are both in there, then what we can do is we can just say client.contexts. So again, client.context is that collection. We're just going to add to that collection. We're going to say .set. We're going to give it a key, so context.data.name, and then we're going to give it a value, which is the context itself. So basically all the content inside the context we're going to label with the name inside this collection. So I guess collection is not really like an array, it's more like an object or a set. If you know about some programming fundamentals, a set is just basically where each one has to be unique, right? Only unique items, there's no duplicates in collection. Then we're going to say else, and then we're going to console.log a warning message. So we'll just say warning, the context at file path is missing a required data or execute property. That will just go to the console if there is an issue with how you formatted your context. So that way it'll just be easy for you to debug, and you're like, okay, I can go back to this file, and obviously there's an issue there. So we just have some debugging there. Then we're going to do a very similar thing to this, which is we're going to create a new on event to listen for every interaction create. So every time someone creates an interaction with the bot, but this time we're not going to check if the chat is a command, we're actually going to check if it's a context menu command. And so how do you do that? Pretty simple, pretty similar even. So client.on, so we're going to say events.interaction create. So it's the same thing we're listening on. Async interaction, arrow function. If this interaction is not a user context menu, so you say is user context menu command right there. Super long, but that is what Discord has decided. And then we're going to return it. So if it's not a context menu, then return. We don't want to do any of this logic. But if it does make it past that if statement, then that means it is a context menu command. And so we can say const, let me scroll up. We can say const context equals interaction dot client client.contexts.get. So guys, remember what is client.context? Client.context is that collection that we previously added all the commands to, right? We set it, and now we're going to get it. So we're going to get it by the name. So interaction dot command name. So then that will give us the context, which should be all the content which is inside the file since we set it here. Then let's just do a validation check to see if context does exist. So if not context, then we're going to say console.error, and we're going to say no context matching interaction.command name was found. Boom, and then let's just return that because we don't want the rest of the code to execute. We just want to end it here and then it will get outside of this. Okay, so then let's do a try and catch and let's just try to execute this command just like normal. So we're going to say await context dot execute. So this should be the execute property that you put on the command interaction, and we're just going to pass that interaction. Then we're going to say catch error, and we're going to say console.error error. So we're just going to print that to the console so that you know if there is an error, and then we'll say if interaction.replied or interaction.deferred. Then we're going to do await interaction.followup, and then we're going to pass in content, and we're going to say there was an error while executing this command, or not command, context. You can also say command, I guess. And then we're just going to send this as ephemeral set to true. And that's it. So that's very similar again, guys. If you go up to what we do here is it's basically the same exact thing when we do it with the commands for interaction create. Again, it's exactly the same. And then else, let's just reply. We're going to say await interaction dot reply. We're going to pass in the object, so content. There was an error while executing this context. And then we're also going to send this as ephemeral. And the only difference between these two is that, as you can see, one's a follow-up and one's reply. So this is kind of just how Discord works, is if you do a reply, you cannot reply again, right? You have to then follow up. So if there was a reply, if there was an exchange back and forth, then we're going to follow up and send a totally new message with this content. Else, we're just going to do the original reply with this content. If that doesn't really make sense, then that's totally okay. This is just, again, how Discord works. But this is all the code you need for handling context menus in your index.js. So this is basically the context handler, which is pretty cool. So now let's get to writing your context menu. So let's go to context and let's create a new file. In this example, I'm going to show you how to do user profile context. I'm just going to call this one user.js. But again, remember guys, you can hopefully learn from this video to be creative and make the user context menus that you want, right? You don't have to do exactly what I do, and hopefully you can make this user profile context menu even better than mine. You can even add even more information than I added. I just added what I think would be cool, like the join date and the created at date. Let's go look at it again. I just think this is kind of cool just to see a glimpse into, their history on your server and show their profile picture. But again, you guys can add however much information as you want. So yeah, let's get into it. So the way we have built it now is you can add however many files you want in here, and the index will take care of that. You don't have to modify anything in the index anymore. We'll just make a new file, and I'll show you the template of how to make a context menu. Right here, it's going to be very similar to, for example, if we go into here, it's going to look like this. So I wanted you guys to feel familiar when making your context menus. So I made it as similar as possible to how you build commands. It's slightly different because we won't use /command builder, obviously, but that's really the only difference, is we're going to swap this with context menu builder, right? So let's go here and let's import that. So let's say context menu command builder. So it's not coming up, but that's okay. And then we're also going to take an application command type. So we need both of these, and we're going to say require. We're going to require this from discord.js. There they go. All right, now they're green, so they should exist. And then we're going to say module.exports, and we're going to do data, new context menu builder. Okay, execute that, and then let's tab over, and we're going to say set name, and this is going to be the name of the context menu. So this is what they're going to see in Discord. So again, I'll show you. If you double click this, apps, this is where the name is going to populate. It says user profile. And so the cool thing about this is you can actually use spaces and casing and everything. Unlike slash commands, you have to use all lowercase and dashes. Here, you can actually use whatever name you want, really. So I'm going to call this one user profile as in the example. So user profile. And then we also need to set the type. So there's multiple types of context menus, but I'm going to show you in another video how to make other kinds of context menus. But for this video, just because I don't want to make it too complicated, this is just for user context menus. So what you're going to want to do is say application command type, the thing we imported from the top, and we're just going to say .user. So this is just kind of like telling Discord where do you want this context menu to be populated on, and we want this to be on when you double click a user's name under apps. That's where we want it. We want it on the user level. Don't forget a comma right here, and let's do the execute command. So execute. Don't forget the async, because this is an async function, and then we're going to take in interaction. So remember, interaction, where that comes from is we are passing it in right here. Context.execute interaction in your index.js. On this is user context menu command. We're passing interaction. We're then accepting the interaction in the execute, right? And then we're going to write the logic for that. So first things first, what do we need to do? Any guesses? Any guesses in chat? What do we need to do? That's right. If you guessed that we need to get the user that this command was used on, then you would be correct. And we want to say const target user equals interaction.target user. So the context menu has a little bit of different attributes than commands, and target user is how we get the user that this command was used on. Pretty straightforward. Now, since I'm going to use multiple attributes such as the date they joined Discord, also the date they joined the server, and the roles they have, I'm just going to make two objects here, one for the user, but then there's also the member. This is the user, as in like the actual user in the Discord system, and then target.member is going to be that user, but more like their timeline inside your server. So I'm going to say await interaction.guild.members.fetch target user.id. So we're going to fetch that from our guild, aka our server, and then hopefully we should now have the target user and the target member. And the only reason why we're separating that is because we're going to get different attributes. Then, since you can see in the embed I have dates, we want to format these dates properly. And Discord formats their dates in the data a little differently than this, but I want it to look very nice like this. So let's just make a helper function, and we're going to call this function format date. We're just going to call this function so that we can format any date we get given. So we're going to say input date. And then we're going to just return new date. We're going to pass the input date in there, and then we're going to say to local date string. We're going to say en us, and you guys can change this if you want a different format, of course. I'm going to say year, I want numeric. I'm going to say month, I want short. And then I want day, I also want as a number, so numeric, right? Okay. There we go. Now we have this format date function, and then let's now make the embed. So this is a pretty short command, guys, because really we have everything we need already. We have the user, member, of course those all have attributes on them that we can use. We now have our format date function, and now we just need to create the embed and send that embed. It's really that simple. So let's say const embed equals an object, because I like to do embeds this way. I don't like to use the embed builder, just feels bloated. So I'm going to say title. Let's do a string. So this is going to be what we have here, right? So I just want to say their name, apostrophe S, profile. Pretty simple. So we're just going to say their name. So, you know, in Discord, people can have many names. They can have their nickname, they can have their global name, and they can have their username. Let's first put their target member .nickname. So this would be the nickname that they have in your server. Then we're going to say target user .global name. And then if that doesn't exist, then just default to their target.user, their actual username. And then we're just going to put an apostrophe S and then profile. Again, please feel free to change this title to anything you guys want. Then we're going to add the fields. So as you can see how I have this formatted, I have two inline fields, created at and joined at with the dates. Fields is going to be an array of objects. So our first object, I'm going to put the name as created at. And then I'm going to put the value as format date, and then target user dot created at. So this is when the user created their Discord account. And then we're just going to say inline set to true. Let's add the next property. The next property is going to be name joined at. So this is going to be the date of when they joined our server. So value is going to be format date, target member dot, and this is going to be the property for when they joined our server. So it's going to be joined timestamp. And then we're going to say inline is true. Then we're going to pass another one, but this one we don't want to make inline, but it is technically a field and it's going to be roles, but we don't want it inline because that could be a long list of things. So I'm just going to say name roles. For value, I'm going to put target.member.roles.cache. So this is how you get the roles that are on this member. So then I'm going to filter the roles, and the reason I'm filtering is because there is a role that gets put on everybody in your server, and it will display like at everyone. It would look like at everyone, and I don't want that there. You guys can keep that there, so you can skip this filter part. But I'm like, why do we want to display at everyone on everyone's user context? Because like, everyone has that role. So what's the point of displaying that? So I filter that out. But again, you guys can keep that in if you prefer. So if r.name does not equal at everyone, then keep it in. But if it does, then filter that out. And then for each one of these roles, we're going to map. So what map does is it basically does a for loop through every item in an array. It's basically making a new array of values. So I'm going to make an array of strings. So I'm just going to put the role here r, which is the entire role. And when you display a role, so you could also do role.name, but I want it to be highlighted like this. And by default, if you just put the role object, Discord will format it properly for you. So just put R, so that's every role. And then that's an array of strings, right guys? So I know this is very conceptual, but that's an array of strings. And then I'm going to join that array of strings so that it's a single string. And I'm just going to comma separate them. So I'm going to do dot join. And then I'm going to put a comma space. So that's just going to put a comma space in between every role, which is basically every role's name, but Discord's going to format the role properly for us. If anyone wants me to go more in depth into this logic, feel free. Also, don't miss this arrow function right here. But yeah, feel free on my Discord or in the YouTube comments down below if you want more explanation on this. I know it's a little verbose because we're doing a lot of chaining here, but just remember that we're getting all the roles. We're then filtering the roles to exclude at everybody. We're then creating a new array of each role. So now we have an array of strings, a list of strings, and then we're going to join those strings together. So it's no longer an array, it's just a single string, but we're just comma separating all the roles. Okay, so that's that. That's the fields. And then let's move on to the thumbnail, because we also would be nice, I feel like it's nice, to add the user profile to the embed. So what we do here is we just pass a thumbnail, and we're going to pass a URL to the thumbnail. You actually don't need quotes here. URL, and we're going to say interaction.targetUser. And then we're going to say dot. Luckily, Discord has this really easy built-in method. It's just called display avatar URL. URL is all caps, and then you have to call it because it is a function. And then that will give us the URL to their photo, which is pretty sick. So now we can just send this interaction back. So we can just say await, interaction.reply embeds, and then we're just going to pass in the array of our single embed. And then that's it. That's our entire user context menu. So now the question becomes, how do we deploy this context menu? So this is where it gets a tad bit tricky, guys. We do have to deploy the command, but the way Discord works is it only lets you deploy once for your server. What I mean by that is we want to be able to deploy our existing / commands, but then we also want to deploy our context menus. But if you try to deploy them separately, they will override each other. So what we need to do is we need to combine our commands with our context menus when we are sending them in, when deploying them to Discord. So this should be commands and context. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So go to your deploy commands.js or wherever you deploy your commands in your Discord bot. And we're just going to do some slight modifications here. So as you guys can see, we get our commands in our previous video, get the folders for the commands. You know, we have subfolders in our commands. In context, we don't have subfolders. You can, of course, make subfolders if you want to alter this code. I'm not planning on having that many context menus, so I didn't do any subfolders. But we're basically going to do this exactly, except for context menus. And then we're just going to combine it before we deploy them. So right below where you get your commands, let's just add some extra logic here. And we're going to do a very similar process. So we're going to say const context path equals path.join. And then we're going to say directory name, and then we're going to get context, right? Very similar, very similar. Then we're going to say const context files equals fs.redirectory sync right there. And then we're going to take in the context path. And of course, just like always, we're going to filter out the file with that don't end in JS. .js. Okay. So as you guys can see, we're only going to do one for loop here because this is nested. Remember, guys, commands is nested with folders, subfolders. We're kind of taking this line here and taking this line here, and we're kind of like skipping a step. So we're kind of like basically here. Then we're going to do this for loop right here. So let's do that for loop. So we're going to say for const file of context files. Then we're going to say const file path equals path.join contexts path past a file. Then we're going to say const context equals require import, basically file path. Then we're going to do the same thing that we do up there. So if data in context and execute the string, execute in command, not command, context. Then we're going to push it. So we're going to say commands, because this is a command. And so we're going to push it to the same array that gets pushed up here, which is right here, right? We have all these commands. So we're just going to add this to that. So commands.push context.data.toJSON. And then we're going to say else. But then we're just going to do the warning. So I'm just going to copy this warning since it's basically exactly the same. Paste that here, and I'll just change this to context. The context, so that you know it's the context. The context that file path is missing data or the execute properties. Okay, beautiful. That's basically it, actually. I think, yeah, now commands will have both the context and the commands in it, the / commands. And that's our only addition. So that's not too bad. Now let's test it out if it works. So let's go to the terminal. Okay, so let's attempt to deploy the commands. So node deploy commands. Commands. Okay, 6 / commands. So is that right? Let's see. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3. We have 3 fun commands. We have 2 utility commands. So that's 5. And then so it looks like it is counting our context menu. So that's good. That's so far so good. Okay, now let's start our bot up. Okay, our global bot. Now let's go to Discord. Let me go to the Meowbot server and let's test it out. So if I double click my name here, there it is. Okay, it's there. So let's try it out. Apps, user profile, check if everything's good. Sending the command. It's taken a little bit. Uh-oh, it did not respond. Let's check what it is. Okay. It says interaction is not defined. Reference error. And by the way, I think this is actually good, guys. This is how I read errors, and this is how you should read errors. So it tells you reference error, interaction is not defined, and it tells you the exact file. So it says index.js, and this is line 69 and then basically character 53. But you can just look at this part. So let's go to index, line 69, and then we have interaction right here. So here's my interaction. So this is just a wrong spelling. I see. Okay, so this one's just spelled wrong. So let's write interaction. There we go. So hopefully you guys caught that error, and maybe you guys didn't have this error. Maybe yours is already working. So let's try to start it up again. And then let's go back to Discord. Let's try this one more time. Let's see, right click, apps, user profile. There we go. Perfect. And so I do have no roles. Okay, so roles will be empty. Let me add a role to see if that works. So let's add a role, add the human role. So let's do it one more time, see if it updates with our new roles, user profile. And there we go. We have our roles listed in the color. So that's a white role. That's why it's white. So that's how you do user context menus in Discord. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. I feel like I set it up pretty good so that you guys can now just add files here. So if I just wanted to add a new context menu like hello.js as an example, I would just go here and copy this format, right? So basically down to here, it's going to be exactly the same. Basically like that. So you're going to have the logic here for execution. You're going to have the name here. Actually, it doesn't need to be, yeah. Okay, name here, and then the kind of context you want here. So in this case, this is all user context. So you'll just use this template. Okay, guys, use this template. And then if you deploy, so let's go back and deploy just to show you that this does work. Okay, let me clear this. Okay, let's do deploy commands.js. No deploy commands, hopefully. And then now it says 7. See that, guys? It says 7 application commands. So just like that, that's how you create a new, now that we did the initial setup, that's all you have to do to create a new one. Now this won't do anything, of course. Here, let's just do interaction.reply. Hello. That's not going to do anything, but we have the command. So let's start it up, and then we can go back into Discord, and you can see that now that user context menu is there. Now, of course, this is not going to do anything other than say hello, but still, just like that, guys, you can add as many contexts as you want, setup free, easy template right here. Hope you guys learned a lot in this video. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you're new, or if you're just not subscribed at all and you just watch my videos. Totally fine, but guys, subscribing helps me out a lot. It's free, same with liking. And let me know in the comments down below of new features you would like me to show you how to implement, whether it be anything Discord bot related. I'll do a new video on it. I'm constantly looking for new ideas. So if you guys have new ideas, please let me know. You can also let me know in our Discord channel where we try to help people out. You can always be a helper and help other people out with the code if you feel like you got it down pretty good. And yeah, I would love to see all your creativity, see what you guys are able to do with user context menus. It would be sick if you guys, if anyone out there makes a really cool feature with a user context menu, please show me in my Discord. I would love to see like what you guys are able to come up with, and maybe I'll feature it on a video in the future just to show off all the cool things that you guys are able to come up with. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video, and see you later. Peace.